King 5 has learned there is something in the works to help that orphaned baby orca swimming in Puget Sound.
Today, a Seattle-based environmental group says it has a plan and is talking to the government about making it happen. King 5's Glenn Farley joins us live with the new developments. Glenn?
Well, Gene, everyone has an opinion on what to do about this whale. There are very strong opinions, and they are widely varied. Although there are different ways to go about this, there are no guarantees of success. In 1965, Namu, a large orca, was brought down from Canada in a mobile sea pen towed over about 2 weeks to Seattle. Now an organization called the Orca Conservancy is proposing a reverse trip, taking Springer, the orphaned and lost member of Canada's APOD, back to her home waters in a similar fashion.
To do everything we can to minimize the stress on this animal, to minimize the contact, and to do every option we can to repatriate this animal into its home waters and to keep it from being lifted out of the water and put into a tank.
Orca Conservancy says it's working with a San Francisco environmental organization to put together a well-thought-out plan to get the young whale back home, providing her live fish and introducing her back to her home pod, which may or may not accept her.
There's a chance that this whale wouldn't be accepted back into the pod, but it's probably a likelihood that she would.
The National Marine Fisheries Service says it will not allow nature to take its course and will not simply let the animal starve to death hundreds of miles from home. But the agency is considering a wide variety of options, including putting the animal into an aquarium so she can be nursed back to health. The agency says a decision on what to do is days, not weeks away.
Yeah, certainly we're not foreclosing any options. A sea pen of some kind might be an appropriate option or an interim step. One of the problems we have with the first steps is that we've got to get this animal assessed as far as its health is concerned and then back into good shape.
Now, the National Marine Fisheries Service says this is not like taking a lost dog back home. This is a lot more complicated than that. But one of the big concerns for environmental groups is they say once this whale were to be introduced into a tank and have a lot of human contact, being a young whale, it would imprint on humans and would likely never return to the wild again. Live in Seattle, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.
Sparks just might fly tonight as various groups meet over what to do about the orphaned orca that's been cruising between West Seattle and Vashon Island. This coming just hours after Sky King captures new video of the whale going after its prey. King 5's Glenn Farley has been tracking the story since it broke. And now, Glenn, we understand this could end up in an aquarium or a zoo?
Well, it could, Gene, but the government says that is not their first choice. But they aren't very optimistic that the whale can successfully be reintroduced to her home pod in Canada either. This morning, a government boat heads out to try and find the young orphaned orca, and representatives from some West Coast aquariums were expected to be on board. She's known as A73 or Springer, and late this afternoon, Sky King captures more video of her going after big salmon. Over the weekend, whale researcher Mark Sears also captures evidence of the whale feeding.
She's got it. I saw her with a fish right there.
Experts say both are good signs that the whale is eating, but other scientists who've seen the whale in prior weeks say she's not eating enough and fear she will ultimately starve to death. And the National Marine Fisheries Service does not want to see that happen.
I mean, well, we enforce something called the Marine Mammal Protection Act, not the Marine Mammal Abandonment Act.
But what should be done to save this whale? Some environmental groups, including the Orca Conservancy, think the whale could be ferried in a moving net pen back to her home in Canadian waters and at least try and reintroduce her to her home pod. What the group does not want to see is a return to capturing whales as was done in the 60s and 70s for aquarium displays.
And none of us want to open that door again. This is a very, very sensitive issue.
Today, the Oregon Coast Aquarium, which played temporary host to Keiko, says it's willing to house and rehabilitate A73.
Just as we did when Keiko came, we want to help, and we're well suited to do that.
Also at stake, the future of another young whale that belongs to L-Pod in Puget Sound. Some experts argue if Springer can be taken back to her home waters off northern Vancouver Island, maybe a whale known as L98 can be brought down to his home waters in the U.S., which has seen its population of orcas drop by 20% over the past 5 to 6 years.
Live in the newsroom, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.
There's a public forum to discuss the orphaned orca at the Hall at Fauntleroy tonight. That address is 9131 California Southwest. That's in West Seattle. The forum starts at 7 tonight.